Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Finland once again, and that of course means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the latest instalment of the Riku box. So first and foremost, a massive shout out and thank you to Riku Sanaho, my Finnish beer mule. It's thanks to him that you guys are getting to enjoy a series of Finnish reviews here on Rampant Lion Reviews. Very nice guy, very knowledgeable. He always picks me out some really interesting stuff, and the beers that we've had from this box so far have been pretty damn good, and we have a good few to work our way through over the next little while, which I hope you guys continue to enjoy, and I hope I enjoy them as well, of course. But yeah, a massive kipis and kitos to Riku as always, and there will be many more Finnish reviews to come for you here on the channel. But for this review today, we are going to go to another Finnish brewery that I've never tried anything from before. I have been aware of these guys for quite some time, and they have a very good reputation, but the main obstacle to doing a review for them here on the channel was that I just couldn't find any information on them. Riku tried as well, and he struggled a lot, so I just emailed the brewery and asked them certain questions and things like that. They got back to me very quickly, and so now we can actually proceed and make a video for them, which I'm very happy about. But these guys, from what I understand, are very well known for their fruited sour beers, their New England hazy IPAs, and in recent times their kind of bigger malty darker beers have been getting very good write-ups as well. But yeah, I think it is nice that we can finally do a review for them. The beer that we're having a look at today was one that Riku picked out for me. He's always picked me out some interesting stuff, like I said, so in Riku we trust, and it is a style that I enjoy and one that I've heard these guys can do very, very well. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to Helsinki, the Finnish capital in the south of the country. And we're going to have a look at my first beer from Etko Brewing. So this particular beer is called Something Fizzy. It comes in at 5% ABV, and this one is a fruited sour, which, as you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, is a style that I have been enjoying very much recently. Of course, in Finland, it's probably Coolhead Brew that are very well known for these as well, but in Sweden, we've got many nice breweries that do these beers. But yeah, this one has black currants, raspberries, cherries, passion fruit, lemon, and some salted licorice in it. So I think it should make for a very interesting review. I quite often find these beers very straightforward, but just they taste beautiful if they're brewed properly, I should say. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what we have. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Etko Brewing. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but it will definitely not be the last. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just go to the search bar and put in your hometown, state, county, whatever. If I've reviewed beers from your local area, they should pop up. Otherwise, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Finnish playlist along with many other things, and we will continue to add to that over the coming years because there will be many more Riku boxes. But yeah, in this video too, I want to give a special shout out to my colleague at the Bishop's Arms in Gustav Adolfs Torg in Malmö here in Skåne. A big shout out to Erik Larsson, who goes by the name Etko. That is his nickname. I actually managed to get a couple of cans of Etko beers to him this time through the box, thanks to Riku as well. So hopefully we can get him a few more in the future, and hopefully we do more Etko reviews here on the channel as well. But big shout out to Erik Etko Larsson in this review too. But let's go on to my brewery notes then, and we'll tell you a little bit about the history of Etko Brewing. So Etko Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Helsinki, the Finnish capital in the south of the country, and the company was originally founded by Sara Kiviluoma and Jere Pajanen, who came from backgrounds in the culinary arts and graphic design. So they started brewing beer in their bathroom just for a little bit of fun and to experiment, and then they started to let others taste their beers. This led to them getting very positive feedback, And at this point, they started to think whether they should try out brewing as a proper business, and they decided to go for it and chose the name Etko, which in Finnish means like pre-party. So the company was officially founded in 2017. They began their commercial operations the following year in 2018, and the first brewery can be found in the Herttoniemi area of Helsinki, and apparently it's on the third floor of a building. So they are like as far as we know, they are the only brewery operating on the third floor of an industrial estate in Europe. The only thing I've heard that maybe tops that is, I think, Yardley Brothers in Hong Kong, who operate on like the 7th floor in one of these big Hong Kong high-rises. But still, for Europe, that is pretty damn cool. But they've got a tap room on site. Pardon me, and they currently produce around 75,000 litres of beer per year, and they've got 2 brewers. So this is Antti-Pekka, who goes by the name Ape, and also Yuka. These guys apparently both just kind of trained as they went. They learned from working within the industry. But Sarah still takes part in the brewing as well, but she works more on the commercial side of the business these days, from what I understand. And they're also joined by the CEO, Jan Gren, who joined the company in 2021. But they're just about to move to a new facility in Valila Konepaja, if I've pronounced that correctly. I do apologise for my bad Finnish pronunciations, but this is a historically listed building that used to be a train factory, essentially. But here they're going to have 1,000 square metres of floor space, and they've got space for 400 seats, 400 guests, and also the Boneless Restaurant, who had their food truck at the brewery previously. So very exciting times ahead for Etko. They're not quite sure when they're going to move there, but this review is being filmed in January of 2023. But over the years, these guys have become very highly decorated. Like I said earlier, they're known mainly for their fruited sours, their New England hazies, and also their big malty beers in recent times have been getting a lot of good write-ups. But as of January 2023, according to Untappd, these guys have produced 165 different beers, not including collaboration brews. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Etko Brewing for the moment. Pardon me. If you want to learn more about these guys, though, you can always check out the brewery website. They do have quite a stylish and jazzy website, I have to say. Or you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. But yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the beer itself. So yeah, like I said to you earlier, this one is a 5% fruited sour. It contains raspberries, blackcurrants, cherries, passion fruit, lemon, and salted licorice, I should say. So yeah, you can see it does look pretty nice. The Etko artwork is often, from what I've seen, quite simple, but just really nicely done. This is a 440ml can. You can see it plain silver top on it, but it does look very nice. And you'll see here, the way they've written Etko here is what you'll often see with the brewery. That is the symbol that they quite often use. But yeah, let's get this guy out then, and we'll get on with the tasting. A 5% fruited sour beer. Like I said to you earlier, Coolhead in Finland are also very well known for this style of beer. This one is getting a little bit excited, so yeah. There we go. I think it's calmed down now that it's got the air into it. That wasn't too bad. We have had beers explode on us on the channel before, but yeah, that was okay. I've seen a lot worse. But yeah, we'll get this guy out into the glass and see how we go. Maybe I just opened it a little bit too slowly. I don't know. So we'll leave a little bit of it in the glass to put in just before we taste it. But yeah, quite looking forward to this one. So yeah, anyway, as you can see, this beer has poured with pretty much no head, but this is the kind of appearance that you would actually expect from one of these modern fruited sour beers. So yeah, you can see, how would we describe this colour? It's actually almost a kind of peachy type colour. So yeah, no head on this one. You can see that when it did pour, there was a few kind of sort of cream coloured bubbles there, but they've disappeared to be pretty much nothing. There's not even a little foamy layer around the edge of the glass. There's not even a foamy ring to this one or any wispy bits on the top of the beer, but you can see one or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass at the bottom, and a few little ones just going up toward the bottom of the head there. But like I say, you can see the colour of this beer is kind of almost like a peach. I would describe that as a kind of nice peachy or rich orange colour. But you can see this beer has a good little bit of haze to it. This one contains wheat and oats according to the can. So remember, when it comes to the colour of your beer, it depends on a few things. That's the type of malts that you use. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will change the colour of your beer as well, and that's particularly important when it comes to sour beers like this. So like I said, in here you've got raspberries, blackcurrants, cherries, passion fruit and lemon. And yeah, I'm a bit surprised at this beer when there's cherries in there, and yeah, when there's cherries and blackcurrants in this one. I'm surprised actually that it's not a wee bit darker than it is, but we have been surprised on the channel with the colour of some of these modern sour beers in the past. But the haziness that you have in this one will definitely be down to the oat and wheat presence, and potentially the yeast as well actually. But these beers are always better when you don't filter them. Quite often what they do with these modern fruited sour beers is that they add the fruit into the beer as puree later on, and then kind of blend it all up before it goes and ferments. So yeah, a nice looking beer, this one. As I say, a little bit lighter in colour than I would have expected it to be, but certainly not out with the realms of possibility for these kind of modern fruity sour beers. So yeah, looks pretty nice, I have to say. I'll just let you have a wee closer look at the bubbles of this one, because there are a few appearing there on the side of the glass. But yeah, this looks nice. Let's have a wee look at the aroma then and just see what this beer is going to have in store for us. I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this one. Oh yeah, so now I'm going to say it has the aroma of this one. It is a little bit more like these kind of modern fruity Berliner Weisse, Gose type things. It's not like the smoothie sours. It's not quite as rich as some of these kind of smoothie or Nordic sour beers that have been out there for a wee while. You know, of course, in Sweden we have the likes of Duck Pond, Morgendagens, Elma11. There's a few others as well that have been doing these kind of modern sour beers. There's a lot of breweries doing these now, but this one smells a little bit more kind of old schoolish, and like a, you know, more like a Berliner Weisse, a fruited Berliner Weisse, to be honest with you. But yeah, it does smell pretty nice. And you can smell, like a few videos ago, we reviewed a candy sour from Salama, who are also there in Espoo, which is very close to Helsinki. But we reviewed that, and I have to say that was one that I really didn't enjoy that much. It was quite unusual. But yeah, these old school kind of fruity Berliner Weisse type beers are ones that I can very much enjoy. But this one certainly has a little bit of a kind of candied note to it as well. Underneath you've got all the juicy fruits in there, a little bit of sourness, and you can smell the kind of fruity character, and also the malty breadiness too. So it's quite an interesting beer, this one, I have to say. I'm really not sure from the aroma what we can expect of it, but let's try and describe that aroma for you a wee bit more, and just describe it a little bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, for me, there is a little bit of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. On top of that, I do get a little hint of like an almost Jacob's cream cracker thing, but for the most part you can smell a lot of white bread, and the white bread comes across as very kind of wet. Yeah, it's got like a very wet white bready character to it. There's a little, I do get a tiny little bit of vanilla in this one. I'm not picking up the kind of licorice actually too much in the aroma. There's a little teeny bit of it toward the front of the nose, and if you take the aroma in very deeply, like kind of like that, you can pick up quite a wee bit of it. But still, for me, the malty kind of backbone of this beer, it's the bread crust, a bit of cracker. There's a teeny bit of woodiness to this beer as well, but lots of like wet, fresh white bread, maybe a teeny little bit of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose. And there's a little bit of kind of smooth, creamy character from the oats. But for me, it's not like these smoothie sours that you get, which are always creamy and almost yogurty. You don't get that kind of vibe from this beer. This is more like an old school Berliner Weisse, rather than one of the one of the really, can we call it really modern sour beers, if that makes sense. But yeah, aroma wise, this is quite nice. There's a little bit of a wholemeal brown bready character to it as well. But yeah, it's interesting. It is definitely interesting for sure. I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the malty base of the beer. When it comes to the green component in this one, this beer doesn't say anything about it containing hops. And as I've said in sour beer reviews before, there is a little bit of a debate among brewers about this, because in the old school kind of wild ale sour beers, you know, like Flanders Reds, Huises and all of these kind of beers, what they would do in Belgium is actually add old hops into the beer so that the hoppy character didn't detract too much from the sour nature of the beer. When it comes to these modern sours like Berliner Weisses and Goses and of course the smoothie and Nordic sours, the question is, you know, is it needed? Because it does the same thing. So a lot of brewers such as Elm 11 or Duck Pond or Fermenterna here in Sweden don't add these hops into the beers, whereas the likes of Holy Goat or Vault City home in Scotland, actually they will add hops into the beer. So it just depends on the brewery. This one doesn't have any hops listed in the ingredient list, but I still think you get a good little bit of placebo green component out of this beer. I get quite a lot of floral character out of it, and also some grassiness on the nose too. But we'll be able to tell when we taste the beer whether it's got hops in it, because you can usually just tell from the edge of your palate. But other than that, you've got lots of fruitiness to this one. It is quite zesty because of the presence of the lemon. And you've got a bit of tartness. I think the raspberry's giving it the tartness, but you've got the juicy blackcurrant. And you can smell like the juicy blackcurrant and what is it? Sort of passion fruit underneath. So yeah, the tartness is coming from the raspberries. The passion fruit's giving you the sort of smoothness underneath. The lemon is giving you the zestiness. And the cherry and blackcurrant, yeah, they're giving you a wee bit of the juiciness in there. So you can smell all these different things, but I think we're going to actually get more detail from it in the flavour. But yeah, this is quite an interesting one. Quite a bit of zestiness to it as well, but you've also got the juicy fruity character in there and the tartness from the berries. So yeah, as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think we should have a taste of this and see what it's all about. No real sediment in the bottom of the can with this one either, but let's go for it and see what this is all about. So yeah, this one is the Something Fizzy, 5% candied sour. Well, I don't know if we can call it a candied sour, 5% fruited sour anyway. To me it smells quite like a Berliner Weisse from Etko Brewing in Helsinki in the south of the country. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, I'm going to say, it's quite nice. This beer has quite a bit of impact to it. Like, you get quite a sour punch out of it, which you would expect, of course. But it does mellow out really nicely. And like I said, this is more like one of these really fruity, sour Berliner Weisses rather than being one of the big, thick, kind of creamy smoothie sours that have been taken over these days. But this is a very, very nicely done beer, and I will say it gives me a very good first impression of Etko. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together is it's really very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. It's been a wee while actually since I've had a sour like this, because most of the sour beers in Sweden tend to either be like the proper old school woody Belgian sours, or the big kind of smoothie type sour beers. It's not often you get one that's more like a kind of old school Berliner Weisse like this one. So yeah, I do like that about this beer, and it does mellow out the more that you drink of it too. But yeah, that is nice. Yeah, let's just break this down then and describe it for you. a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So, middle third of your palate, you can feel that nice kind of fresh white bready bread crust backbone there. That gives you the backbone of the beer. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you've got a little touch of a kind of woody character in there, and there is a little touch of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker, but not a lot. For me, above that, there's a bit of a wet wholemeal brown bready layer coming out of the beer too, which I quite enjoy. So you've got that lovely wet wholemeal brown bready character too. And then above that, you start to get the more fluffy and airy white bready character coming out of the beer. It's interesting too, because within that kind of white bready layer, toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you do start to get this very light, slightly oily, licoricey note coming out of the beer. But I will point out the licorice in this beer is very, it is really quite subtle in comparison to what you can get. And you get quite a little bit of it in the aftertaste, in fairness too, but for me the licorice in this beer, it is there, but it is really very subtle. And I think it is quite a nice touch to this one as well. But like I say, you've got that airy white bready layer in there. So yeah, you've got that, that airy white bready layer is in there. Then you have so the airy white bready layer, the oily licorice further forward, and then above that you can feel the slightly more dense, wheaty character coming out of the beer. So yeah, you can feel the thicker, wheaty white bready layer, and above that you've got the oats too. So the oats kind of come out. If you go down the middle line of your tongue, you get this nice kind of slightly creamy oaty character out of this one. But like I say, this beer is by no means like a smoothie sour. This one is a lot lighter in its mouthfeel. It's certainly not massively creamy. It is more like a kind of wet tart sour beer, this one, rather than anything else. But we'll come to that when we talk about the mouthfeel. But as I say, you've got a densifying wheat layer on top of that, a bit of an oaty creaminess down the middle line of your tongue, and a little bit of dryness going further out from that. So you do get a little bit of the drier and sweeter oaty character out toward the edges of the palate. In the dead centre of your tongue though, there's a little kind of circle there, and you get a wee bit of a kind of Werther's original butter candy, butterscotch type flavour to the beer too. So yeah, the malt base in the middle of your palate with this one is quite interesting. But yeah, I think this is, for me, this is a really nicely done Berliner Weisse, and it does go about its business really nicely. We have to say that for sure. Yeah, the malty base in this one is really nice done. The licorice just adds a wee bit of depth to it. But yeah, I think that's us covered the middle third of the palate. Let's look at the back third of your palate in this beer. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of kind of bready build up in there. For me, it's like a slightly sweet kind of wholemeal brown bready character that I get out of this, incidentally, which is quite interesting. But the base of that back third of the palate, yeah, a little bit of fresh white bready bread crust, which is a little bit drier, incidentally. Remember, as I always say, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more bitter and dry flavours come out further back. So you definitely have a little bit of that more dry character to the base of that back third of the palate. A little bit of cracker, as I said, again a wee bit drier. Then there's a wee touch of a wholemeal brown bready layer, which to me feels a little bit taller and a bit more airy. Then you have above that the very airy like white bready layer in there, and again that's very airy. And above all of that, you've got just a little touch of wheaty character, and it's a wee bit more bitey as well. And above everything else, you do get these more airy, like yeasty type esters out of the beer. It's like a very light white, you get a very light sort of white bready character at this one. Little kind of touch of honeycomb to it as well. It's really interesting. But definitely back third of the palate, you can feel the flavours are taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of the palate, they just condense down and squash together that little bit more. So yeah, I really like how all of this goes together in that beer. What I would say is about, particularly in regards to the malt base in this beer and how that all goes together, you can see why they would call this beer Something Fizzy. It really just has a little bit of this almost like sherbety type quality to it in the middle of the palate, which is quite interesting. So yeah, a wee bit of that going on for sure. So yeah, in terms of uh, the sort of hoppy side of the beer, the green component as I usually call it, like I said to you, this beer doesn't have hops listed on the ingredients, and I think going by the flavours out of this beer, I don't think it does, but that doesn't stop me getting at least some of the kind of placebo effect that you would get at hops. Like I get a teeny little bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate, and as you come further forward, particularly toward the front corners of the tongue, it has this really kind of floral character, but you can tell there's no hops in here because of how smooth. You can tell that because of how smooth the edges of your palate actually are. But round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy. And yeah, you've just got a little bit of zestiness on the front tip of your tongue too. But yeah, you can kind of tell just from the fact that the sides of your palate are so smooth. There's no hops in this beer, definitely not. On the fruity side of things then, let's look at the kind of fruity and sour side of the beer, the front third of your palate essentially. So, the fruity sour side of the beer. Yeah, on that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of that kind of white bready build up in there, but this is where you get a lot of the kind of sherbety flavours that we were talking about earlier. You can get that, but the base of the front third of your palate, there's a little bit of bread crust, a little bit of smooth white bread, and again just a little bit of that sherbety note there, but you've got all the fruit kind of sitting on top of that. So I think, pardon me, in the back of that front third of your palate, you're getting more of the passion fruit. I think the passion fruit is the kind of anchor in this beer, and then as you move further forward into the middle of that front third of your palate, you start to get a little bit of the black currant, I think. Well, maybe not, but yeah, let's think about that. The back of the front third of your palate is definitely the passion fruit, and as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, you get the more zesty, lemony character out of the beer. So yeah, it's quite interesting how that goes together. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer is quite really is quite interesting. So yeah, a lot of the tartness I think in this beer is coming from the raspberries and the lemon. So above the passion fruit, you get on the back half of the front third of your palate. I think that's where a lot of the raspberry is coming out. Then as you move into the middle of that front third of your palate, you can feel the slightly juicier and more mellow black currant and cherry in there. Then as you move into the front half of the front third of your tongue, it's all about the lemon and the big zestiness that the lemon's giving you. So it's almost kind of like a lemon sherbet, Berliner Weisse, this one, with the other fruits in there. The lemon for me is the most pungent and prominent of the five fruits in there, but the passion fruit and the smoothness it gives you is quite obvious, and then the juiciness of the other ones are there too. But the raspberry is contributing a lot to the tartness of this beer. I think we have to say that. But like I say, it's like a Berliner Weisse for me, this one, with the kind of lemony sherbet qualities, and then some tart and sherbety fruits. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one. Yeah, it's a really interesting beer, this one, and it's certainly a very good introduction to Etko. I definitely am curious to try some of their New England hazy IPAs, because Riku's raved about those, and the guy from Etko Brewery, what was his name, Miska, was telling me that their Space Noir Imperial Stout had won a number of awards actually. So we need to try the different kinds of beer from this brewery, but this is certainly a very good introduction to them, that's for sure. So yeah, a big thank you as well to Miska for giving me all the information to tell you guys in the video about the brewery as well. But yeah, for me, this is a really nice kind of more old school, modern Berliner Weisse, if we can call it that. But yeah, let's round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So, for me, this beer, it's kind of top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's a little bit oily, but at the same time, like quite a wet and clean mouthfeel that it has. In terms of IBUs, I think, technically speaking, it'll have 0 IBUs, but there is just a little touch of like bitterness to this beer for sure. I mean, yeah, it's going to have like 5 or 10 IBUs or something like that. It is pretty tart. It's got a hell of an impact to it because of the raspberries and the lemons, and it also has that kind of sherbety note to it as well. But the malt base, a little bit grainy, a little bit smooth. There's a little touch of sweetness and things in there as well. But yeah, you've got that juicy, you've got a good little bit of juicy fruitiness coming out of this one, but also quite a bit of tartness and zesty character from the lemons and the raspberries. The cherries and the blackcurrants for me are mellowing it out, and the passion fruit's giving it a little bit more smoothness. But a really, really nice beer, this one. And as I've repeated a few times, a very nice introduction to Etko Brewing. So we need to check out the other styles of beers that these guys have available. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Etko Brewing as well. And until the next time, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Etko Brewing social media, and you will see more from Etko Brewing in the future at some point very soon, I'm sure. But until then, Slange, Skull, cheers, keep us in Ketos. Big shout out to Riku, Etko, and of course Mishka at the brewery, who helped me out with making this review possible. Slange just now, keep us and Ketos.